There's your master cylinder here. Your power brake booster's here. The first step is what you want to do is go ahead and remove your intake manifold vacuum hose. And that'll be right here. So we'll take that off. And then we'll take the two nuts off that hold your master cylinder onto your brake booster. And there's one on each side. One down there. And be careful not to mess up any gaskets if you have a gasket in between the two. And you shouldn't have to take your master cylinder out, so just you'll slightly push it forward. Just be careful not to bend any of your brake lines. All right, once you get your vacuum hose off and you get your bolts off of your master cylinder, I just went ahead and disconnected the wiring that went into the master cylinder. And also there's another metal piece down there that just holds your wiring in place, so you want to take that off. And then for these, they were 12mm nuts. And then this was your retaining piece for your check valve. So that goes right there. Okay, so just slowly pull your master cylinder forward. Just move it out of the way the best you can. And it looks like my gasket ripped. But it's something I made, so I can make it again. So we'll take that gasket off. So the next step will be to remove this clevis pin right here, or clevis bolt. And what you want to do is take this retaining spring or retaining clip off, and then you can remove this spring. And you'll go ahead and remove these 4 nuts from the firewall. And then you should be able to pull your brake booster out. So once those are all out, and then you've got your spring and your clevis pin out, you should be able to pull your brake booster out the other side. Alright, you'll want to wiggle it back and forth until it comes out. And just be careful of your brake master cylinder so you don't damage anything. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take out my charcoal canister, or just move it off to the side. I disconnected a couple of the hoses. There's 2 bolts on top, and then there's a nut at the bottom that's holding it in. And so once you disconnect enough items, you can go ahead and lift it up and then move it out of the way, and then your brake booster should have enough clearance to pull out of there. If you have any old gaskets that are on your old brake booster, you want to go ahead and just transfer those to your new brake booster. And then make sure you get a really good quality or OEM brake booster. That way you're not repeating this whole thing in a few years. And then when you take this off, you want to get this as close as possible. You want the same amount of thread showing on your new one. And this is going to determine your brake pedal height. So you can readjust it if you need to. Just loosen this nut up and this will spin off, and then get it as close as possible, and then once it gets back in the vehicle, you can readjust it. And then make sure to remove your check valve and put it on your new one. And then to check your check valve operation, you should be able to blow air through one side and not blow air through the other side. So you should be able to blow air through this side and not blow air through this side. And that's just to make sure that your check valve is working properly. Okay, the next step before you get the brake booster back into the vehicle is you want to do some measurements just to make sure that the clearance between this and your piston for your master cylinder, make sure that there's no clearance at all, and that's for this application. Now you may want to check with your owner's manual. There may be a different number for your vehicle, but for this one it's pretty much a zero clearance between the master cylinder piston and the push rod for the brake booster. To do the measurements, you can do a couple different ways. You can use a vernier caliper, and you can use the back end of it and measure it from the end of the push rod and how far it protrudes from the brake booster to the master cylinder mounting surface. So this is the mounting surface for the master cylinder, and so you just want to measure it from this tip until it comes straight across the mounting surface. Okay, so for mine I've got 0.316 of an inch. So you just want to write whatever measurement you get, write that down. And then your second measurement, you want to measure your master cylinder edge to the outside edge. So that would be from here to this edge. So you just want to find out how far that is with some type of scale or measurement or some kind of vernier caliper, whatever you need to use to get that measurement, just from this edge to the end of this edge. Okay, and that'll be measurement 2. And then your third measurement will be from inside your piston inside there to this edge right here. So the best way to do that is, again, with the vernier caliper, just extend it until it touches inside the piston there, or the edge of the piston, and then it lines up with the outside of the master cylinder. Okay. And that'll be measurement 3. And so as you can see, for the first measurement I got 0.316. The second measurement I got 0.548. And then the third measurement that went into the piston pocket, I got 0.866. So you can take the third measurement minus the second, and then minus that by the first measurement, and then see how close to 0 you get. Now you can do it also, you can just add these two up and see how close it is to this one. So I get 0.864, and I've got 0.866. So pretty close to spot on. That's tenths, hundredths, thousandths of an inch. So 2/1000ths of an inch clearance or difference between the two, which is really good. Now that's pretty much just splitting hairs. If you get, more than that, depending on how much more, you may want to adjust your push rod. And the way you do that is to get the serrated portion of the rod with a pair of pliers inside here, and then turn this cap in or out, depending on what your measurements are, to get it as close to 0 as you can. And you make sure you do that before you put it back in the vehicle. As you're putting your brake booster back in, just make sure you're not crunching any hoses, wires, and make sure there's nothing in the way. And as you can see, I'm not going to put in that other gasket just because it's going to make a little bit more, it's going to push it out a little bit more, so I'm just going to leave that off. So if there's nothing in the way, just gently push it back and forth until it fits flush with the firewall. Flush. And then you want to go inside just to make sure it's lined up on the inside by the brake pedal. And as you can see, it's in the center, so you can tell that it's lined up with the pedal. And then we'll wait to connect this because we're going to measure our free play, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, and then you'll want to start either inside, putting those mounting bolts back on, or go ahead and put these mounting bolts on out by the master cylinder here. We'll go ahead and put the mounting bolts inside first. Yeah, once you get everything hooked up inside, go ahead and hook up the master cylinder. Or first you want to put back the charcoal canister or whatever you removed that might be in the way. So do that first and then put your master cylinder back on. As soon as you get your charcoal canister back in, just put your clips back the way they go. Okay, and for the master cylinder nuts, you just want to make sure you get them torqued right. They are 108 inches for this vehicle, so 108 inch-pounds on each side. Okay, once you hear the click, it's torqued. And you can hook your hose back up from your intake manifold. And make sure everything else is connected. And then we'll check the pedal height and the free play of the pedal. One of your measurements is your brake pedal free play, and that's from when you first start feeling resistance when you push and from when it's released all the way. And that should be about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. So that's your brake pedal free play right there. Okay, the first measurement you want to take is your brake pedal height. And it's going to be from your carpet to the front of your brake pedal. And you can use a ruler or whatever kind of measuring device you might have. And it should be about 6 1/3 of an inch to about 6 3/4. And that should be your pedal height. The measurement's going to be down a little bit. So you check it down here. And so this looks like it can come out some. When you back off this nut right here, what you can do is twist this either with a wrench or by hand, and that'll make it go in and out of here. So that will affect your brake pedal height just by turning this one way or the other. Once you get that adjusted, you'll want to go ahead and adjust your brake pedal switch. So when you push on your brake pedal, there'll be a little bit of a clearance right here, and you'll want it between 1/64 and 3/32. And you can see just on top of that green washer there, that is what I'm talking about on the clearance. So not much clearance at all is what you want right in here.
And if you need to adjust it, you'll back this nut off, and then you'll need to disconnect the wiring here, the plug, and then you can move this in and out just to get that clearance, so that when you press your brake pedal, your stop lights, your brake lights in the back of your vehicle turn on. So you'll be able to see, just by pushing on your brake, if your lights come on or off, and then you can adjust them by moving that sensor in and out.
Okay, and your last measurement is your pedal reserve distance. So with the engine running, you'll want to measure from the floorboard to the top of your brake pedal when it's depressed with the brake on. So with the engine running, this is going to go down more, and you just want to measure that distance and make sure it's at least 2 3/4 of an inch. If everything else was adjusted correctly, you should get at least 2 3/4 of an inch of pedal reserve distance. So just make sure you have that. If not, you may have a leak somewhere in the system, vacuum leak or whatnot. So just check to make sure you have that correct distance. And then when you take off your intake manifold vacuum hose, you want to smell it too, just to make sure you don't smell gas, because you may have a fuel injector leak, carburetor leak, or whatever it might be. So just make sure you don't smell gas or have gas going through your line or excess vapor, because that could lead to early diaphragm issues inside your brake booster. So just make sure you solve all your issues. If your brake booster went out prematurely, look for other signs that may have caused it to fail. And then when any part of your brakes is taken apart or put back together or removed and replaced, just make sure your brakes are working properly before you go any long distances. Just be safe, and you should be good with your repair. All right, I hope this has been helpful. This has been Mike from Mike's Do It Yourself. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and good luck on your next home or automotive project.